Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is training, and we're going to discuss speed work for bench press. So I just met with a gym member and friend last night who wanted a training session just to kind of cover information on the bench press. And this person is incredibly strong on the bench press, over 450-pound competition bench, and they're going to be competing in a few months, and they just wanted to kind of retouch on ideas, maybe get some opinions, just from someone who had a good eye but just a different eye. So we were talking about different techniques and specific to their body type. So they're a thicker frame, tons of muscle on them, and we were going through their positioning to try to create more power for them to blast through the mid range of the bench, which is where their typical kind of weak spot is. So they'll get it to the chest, it'll pop off the chest, and it just kind of dies in the middle. If they get it through the middle, they're fine, they can lock it out. If it dies in the middle, it dies. But there's no kind of like grinding, there's no middle kind of strength. It just either goes or it doesn't. So, three things we did, and this might not be the best advice for everyone, but just an example, is we widened their foot position to give them a little more left to right stability with their legs. So they have a position where their feet are tucked up underneath them and they're driving through their big toe basically into the ground, but their foot is not flat on the ground. So depending on the powerlifting federation you would compete in, some have to have a flat foot, some don't. If you don't even compete, then it doesn't matter. Just make sure your feet are on the ground. It's for back safety and whatnot, and also for maximum power. But we widened the feet out a little bit. It wasn't much. It was only about like 2 inches ish per side, 2 or 3 inches. But what we said was, if they have a narrow stance and their body gets any kind of balance in positioning, like bad positioning via balance, their upper body will have to take care of holding and balancing the weight. At the same time, it would be focusing on trying to move the weight. And typically, that's going to decrease our power output. So we want muscles either being stabilizers or movers. We don't want them doing both, because they're either going to do a shitty job of both, or they're never going to maximize a singular job if they have another job to do as well. So we widened their feet, gave him the ability to push a little bit harder on his left foot to push him to the right, or push harder on his right foot to push him to the left, if there's any balance issues. Then we dropped some of his inward squeeze of shoulder blade. So typically when you bench press, and we've done a podcast, by the way, on proper bench press technique. So while I'm yapping, I'm going to go ahead and try to look that up so we can reference it. But when you do a bench press properly for strength, even just for safety of your chest and shoulders, the way you should bench press always, your shoulder blades should be pulled inward and down. So the shoulder blades are flat on the ground, like on the bench, so that way you can have the most power output, shoulder safety, all the good stuff. So that was podcast number 459. We talked about bench press technique and basic information. We also have a podcast way back when, in podcast 223, about strengthening a low arch bench press. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a big arch on your bench and you think you're screwed forever, not at all. I train a bunch of people who have state records and really good benches, who are flat back, quote unquote, bench pressers. There's still some arch, of course, but they're not that crazy twisted up in a pretzel kind of body position. So those are two podcasts you can check out for more basic information on just the bench press in general, 459 and 223. So for this lifter, he has, again, very big, thick upper body. What was happening in his setup, when he would pinch his shoulders kind of up and in, and then he, like almost like he was doing a shrug, and then he would try to pull his shoulders down towards hips. But the problem is he has so much muscle in his lats and so much size that if he pulled up and in first, he could never get all the way down. Meaning he was never actually fully contracting his lats, because the rhomboids, the mid-back and the lower traps, were so contracted that they would have to actually release some for him to get a deeper contraction in his lat, and therefore have more shoulder bracing to have explosive power out of the bottom of his bench. So he was so thick and so muscular that the order in which he got his tightness was extremely important. He had to get rid of so much togetherness to focus on the down. And that would get his lats super tight up under his armpit. And the way that he benches, if his lats are tight, it can press into his upper arm, and he gets a shit ton of power. Sorry for the cuss, but he gets a ton of power from his upper outer pec. So if he has his upper lat tightened in and really tightened down, that stabilizes that upper outer pec a lot better, and he can get a bigger punch out of the bottom. So the widening of the feet gave him better balance, and it gave less work for his arms to do balance-wise, and they would have more power to give to the explosivity. Then the dropping of the inward squeeze for instead working towards more lat squeeze again gave him more explosive power. So he could maybe get higher up into his quote-unquote sticking point before it really hit him. And then we added accessories, and we kind of focused on exercises on the inner head of the triceps. So due to the positioning he benches in, the part of his triceps he uses the most is the inner head of his tricep. Some people will hit the long head, some people the outer head, depends on the width of their grip versus the narrowness of their shoulders, and da-da-da-da-da. Bar placement, all this stuff, bar path, whether you do a straight path, J path, anything like that. So this athlete needed more inner head of the triceps, and their regular accessory style work for triceps was general. So just some rope grip tricep press downs, maybe some, odds and ends skull crushers with a barbell or easy curl bar. So more of an overhanded style, which hits the long head and the outer head of the tricep more than the inner head. So we switched to inner head variations of his individual isolation work for the triceps. So examples of that is like you can do the rope grip but put fat grips on it. So fat grips are rubber handles you can add to anything and make it thicker. We also did fat grips on dumbbells and did floor rolling tricep extensions. Those are freaking awesome for building up the inner head of your triceps. So that was really good variations. And then his kind of supplemental bench pressing work. So after his max effort work, we switched to the thumbless mid-range style presses. So after he would do his max effort kind of competition style bench work, he's going to go to thumbless mid-range presses. This can be done with a regular bar, it can be done with an angled football bar, it can be done with a fat bar, it can be done with kind of any different type of bar he wants. You can do it against bands, you can do it with bands, you can do it no bands. And he would do thumbless because, again, when you take away the thumb, which is also called a suicide grip, by the way, so make sure you have spotting arms up to protect you in case you drop the bar if you try this. But thumbless benching hits the inner head of the tricep more anyhow. So we switched his supplemental lifts to thumbless mid-range presses. We switched his isolation type work, like accessory basic work, to thick grip variations of extensions. So those are some changes we made for that athlete who already benches 450, but we talked, they felt better with these changes, they could feel the purpose of them, and then we're going to see over the next 2 or 3 months, see what effect we get from that. Now, something that they add into their bench work commonly is speed work, which is bench pressing against the bands. And I have talked in the past about how banded bench pressing doesn't work for most people. Now, this does not mean it doesn't work. It just means it doesn't work for most people. So who are most people and who wouldn't it work for? Now, this is just an opinion. You can find 100 coaches who believe 100 different things. But typically, most people I train, they don't have consistent enough technique that they need to then focus on speed. Meaning, most people's technique is not consistent enough that they can try to be fast. They can only go as fast as their technique is, meaning they can't really go faster than a regular competition bench would kind of dictate. So typically when you do speed work for bench press strength and explosivity, you are moving faster than you would typically move a max effort lift. However, most people, their technique is so poor in consistency that if they try to go fast, they're going to do 3 reps and they all 3 touch different parts in their chest. They have different bar paths. They forget to flex their legs 1 of the 3 reps. There's so much chaos going on because they're so focused on speed that they never develop their technique. Technique proficiency, technique consistency needs to be developed before you would worry about speed work. So, Speed work is freaking awesome. It works great. However, you have to have technical proficiency. And overwhelmingly, most people do not. Not even close. So they mess up their cues, they order the cues, they don't get all the cues all the way fired in right. So there's so much variability to how they can bench that if you try to add them trying to do it fast, it's going to be a train wreck. It's just going to be a faster train wreck, basically. So, who does speed work for? Speed work does work. It is good. It's been used, oh my gosh, decades. So there's no arguable fact. It absolutely works. However, it really only works for athletes who have the technical proficiency. So advanced athletes, they can use it to build explosive power and improve maximal muscle recruitment from the nervous system. So when they say boom, press in their head, bam, all the fibers fire. So they can actually increase their muscle recruitment kind of percentage and intensity by doing banded speed work. That's of the assumption that they can do all of them exactly correct, fire the exact right muscles in the exact right pathway. So once technique proficiency is sound, which is unfortunately not going to be for most of the people listening to this podcast. Once you have good technique, then you can add banded work. But it is helpful for people listening to this podcast who maybe don't have technical proficiency, that you hear that maybe speed work might not be the best thing for you to work on right now. Let's try to make every bench press look the same. So I have clients I do online work with where they send me videos and they live in different states or countries. And what I ask them to do, some of the challenges I have for them when they're kind of new to technical proficiency is, can you send me 3 videos? I want you to send me set 1, set 2, set 3 of your bench press work, and don't label them. I want to see if I can tell which one's which. I have had clients send me 2 videos, and if it weren't for people walking around in the background, I have no freaking clue that they would be different videos. Their speed of their setup was the exact same. The speed of their press was the exact same. The way they sat down, stood up, the way they got their hands set, everything was the exact same. I literally couldn't see the difference. The only way I knew is because somebody was loading plates in the background and in the next video they weren't. That is what you want to be able to do for yourself. Film yourself. Record your sets. We all, it's more common nowadays that people kind of film themselves working out. About, I'd say 5 to 10 years ago, you'd kind of be like a douchebag trying to film yourself while you're working out. And everybody would be like, what the hell's wrong with you? But now it's pretty freaking common. So just go ahead and film yourself because it's way more accepted now. I have 3 board bench assistance boards being used as camera stands more than actual freaking 3 boards. So, but it's okay to film yourself in today's culture. So do it. Take advantage of that. Film yourself and see if you can make all your sets look exactly the same. Now, once you can, speed work's going to be freaking awesome. You should definitely throw in speed work. Now, the general way that you do speed work is you would band the bar from the bottom. If you don't know how to use bands or what I'm talking about with bands, you're definitely not ready for speed work. But let me see if I did a podcast on bands before. I believe I did. So, yes, okay, podcast 379. It's titled Resistance Bands for Strength and Aesthetics. So go ahead and listen to podcast 379 if you're not familiar with using resistance bands on barbell movements. So that will give you more background and more reasoning as to the general usage of bands. And then what we're talking about today is specific to the usage of strength development for the bench press. So you would band from the bottom, meaning you would have a setup where you'd have either band pegs or dumbbells underneath the pathway of the bar where you're going to bench. Don't put them under your face, okay, where you rack the bar, because when you unrack the bar, it's just going to try to pull the bar back over your face. So put the anchor system in vertical alignment with your the pressing pathway. So that way it's pulling the bar straight down, not back into your face. You want to use bands from the bottom, and while you're pressing, you're going to try to move explosively, very fast and violent, but you're only going to lightly tap or not even tap the bar on your chest. So you don't want to let it hit you, sink into you, and then explode back up. Now, there are variable reasons why you would do that, but in general, the best way to use speed work is to not deload the weight on your chest at the bottom of the movement. You drop it down, you throw it back up as violently as you can, and maybe just tapping or grazing your t-shirt. That's it. How much bands do you use? If you look up band rating systems, the three smallest bands that are typically used for powerlifting purposes are in small by thinness of rubber, not length. So they're all like 41 inches or 42 inches, I believe. So micro minis, if you double the usage of those, and we have on our Brutal Iron Gym YouTube channel, just write band from bottom, Brutal Iron Gym band from bottom on YouTube, and you'll see how to set up bands, by the way. Okay, we have the videos for you. Micro minis doubled are pretty good for benchers of about 225 to 315 pounds of strength. Typically, if you're benching in that, you're probably not going to be ready for speed work anyhow because it's not super duper heavy in bench pressing. However, if you want to play around with it and have fun with it, that's an idea. So micro minis doubled for 225 pound benchers to 315 benchers, somewhere in there. You can use minis doubled for 315 to 405 benchers, and monster minis doubled for 405 and greater benchers. Now, is there variability in there? Hell yes. So in general, the idea is to have a mix of band weight and plate weight. So roughly you would have about 33 to 50% of your 1 rep max in plate weight. You would then add 25 to 33% of band tension of your max to that plate weight, giving you a total of 50 to 70-ish% of your 1 rep max. And then that's what you would do your explosive work with. Maybe week 1 you do like 6 sets of 3 at 50% total, counting bands and plates. Week 2 you might do 60% total, counting bands and plates. Week 3 you might do 70% total, counting bands and plates. Week 4 do some other weird variation of something else, and then come back for another 4-week cycle and try to move up to 52.5, 62.5, 72.5, something like that. You would just do progressive overload over time, and then you would vary bars, you would vary speeds. You could actually do kind of like a slowed, like a fastest eccentric into a pause, undeloaded into an explosive press. There are variations of speed work, kind of movement pathways and movement styles you can use. But you just wouldn't repeat the same damn thing 4 weeks in a row over and over and over again. So typically how people use this is they would do speed work on their second bench day of the week that isn't their max effort day. So they would have a day where they do max effort, true like 1 rep max and 2 rep maxing kind of stuff on some type of bench variation. And then second, like in the week, they would do another bench day, and instead of the max effort thing, they would do this kind of dynamic effort or speed work. So this is based off like Louis Simmons kind of conjugate method style stuff. So you don't have to follow his exact program if you don't want to. He's freaking genius and pretty smart, and you're probably going to get good results if you do. But that's what you would do is you would bench on a secondary day, and you would bench against the bands instead of your max effort lifts. Typically on days like that, you're going to do 6 to 10 sets of 2 to 3 reps. It's roughly, if you had to kind of guesstimate, about 18 to 24 total reps that you're going to do. And the idea is to be as explosive and violent as possible once the speed drops and you can't recover. So maybe you just had a bad set, you get more aggressive and you're super fast and explosive on the next set. But once you can't recover speed, you're done. So you just bench as fast and explosive as you can. Once it's not explosive, stop, move on to the next thing of the day. So that's one typical way to use speed work. Another way is use it as an accessory after your max effort movement. So you can do your max effort movement and then just do maybe 3 to 5 sets of explosive work. So typically you won't do the full 6 to 10 sets if you've already done max effort, because banded explosive work is pretty violent on your joints. So if you're already adding in max effort stuff, you're just going to beat the shit out of your shoulders and elbows and wrists. You can also do banded work, explosive work, speed work as a warm-up before max effort. So you might put some band tension on the bar, do some explosive sets, take the bands back off, warm up, and go to your max effort. And that just kind of awakens explosivity before you go to your max effort stuff. So those are 3 ways you can use bands and get familiar with them and kind of start practicing with them. So, is speed work beneficial for bench press? Oh, hell yes. But you have to be consistent in your technique first. Then when you do add it, it's only one kind of piece of the puzzle, so make sure you don't like exclusively only do that. So still do your max effort lifts, still do other supplemental lifts, still do accessories. So for isolative movements for like the chest, the tricep, front shoulder, bicep, stuff like that, back, lats, you would still do all your other movements as well. So banded work for the bench press is freaking awesome. So there's some protocol in there, like we said, how much band tension to use and what are the percentages and whatnot. If you want clarification on any of this, shoot us an email at brutalironGym@gmail.com and I can send you the outline that we use for the podcast so you can see the percentages written down. If you would like any help on your bench, so for example, I met with this client, even though they're already benching 450 pounds plus in competition, even though they're awesome in bench, there's still always things to learn. So if you want, you can shoot us a video of your bench press. Edit it, please, so I don't have to watch 10 minutes of you loading the bar. But send it to our Instagram channel. Our Instagram is brutalironGym@gmail.com. If you want to, send it, and I'll give you a couple of tips or feedback or something. And then obviously we're always happy to help with programming, whether it's bench-only programming or if you want full powerlifting programming, we'll help with that as well, on how to analyze your exact body type and your movements to see what kind of modifications we need to make for you to get stronger. So like we said, with this athlete, specific to his body type strength levels, we ended up widening his feet. We got rid of some of the inward squeeze of the shoulder blades to get more lat squeeze, and we switched to accessory works to thumbless mid-range presses and thick grip extensions. And that's going to help him a shit ton to kind of get to that next level. So if you are wanting to get to the next level, send us a video, reach out to us. Our email is brutalironGym@gmail.com. Send us a video on Instagram, and we'll help you out. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it gave you some ideas on how to use speed work if you're interested in doing so. And like I said, if you need anything, any help at all, just reach out to us and we're always here. Cool. Okay, if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. You can tell us at our email at brutalironGym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.